Well, I'm looking at online, but why don't you go ahead just for the record? I'll call the meeting to order, the special meeting of the Farmington Historic District Commission. It's 10 a.m. December 31. I don't know, Shannon, should you go ahead and call the
Sure,
roll?
I'll go ahead and do a roll call of the commission members. Jay Bombara,
Here.
Jim Calciano,
Here.
Jay O'Leary,
Here.
Evan Honeyman,
Here.
Liz Gemsky,
Here.
John Renahan,
Here.
and Ted Sanford.
Here.
I also note for the record that Town Attorney Bob DiCrescenzo is on the phone with us as well.
Great. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you, everybody. As somebody already pointed out, it is New Year's Eve day, or New Year's Eve, I should say, in day, yes. And I appreciate your joining this meeting. And I know that hopefully we'll keep this only to the length that's completely necessary to get through this. But I did think that it was important to sort of have this meeting and make sure that when we start the new year, we're all on the same footing and agree on how we're going to proceed. So I would also like to say, and I see there are, I believe, other people watching or at this meeting, I guess, technically, and I appreciate that. Obviously, public is invited, but I do not anticipate there will be any public comment. This is not a public hearing or application. And quite frankly, even if we were inclined, I think it's appropriate that the officers and the election of officers is truly a function and a thing to be decided by the commission members. And I think it's, so I think that we will not be having any public comment, but thank you for attending and listening. As already mentioned, we've asked, and Bob DiCrescenzo of Updike Kelly is here representing, I guess, the town. And he, as you have seen, and we'll get to that in a little bit, has provided a letter opinion regarding some of the issues that have come up or been raised regarding elections. And then a couple things before we get into it, the agenda. I would like to, first of all, state that nothing that I've said either in a letter or publicly or whatever has meant to be, and is not a criticism of any member of the town or even this commission. I respect that. To me, this is an issue of elections and making sure we're holding a proper election. I do think the town staff has done its best to get us information, and I appreciate them even being able to organize this meeting in such a quick way. So, and that includes also their assistance at the previous meeting. The second thing I'll mention, I just think it's going to be important, perhaps, is I don't know who is aware, but Holly Holden has resigned, and that's why she's not on the, well, she may be listening, that's fine. That's why she's not participating on the commission. I would like to thank her. I believe she spent over 20 years on the commission. I know she was here before I was. And in fact, at this point, it may make Jim Calciano the longest serving commissioner. I might be second, I'm not sure. But at any rate, thank her for the efforts she's made over the last 20 years, as well as thank her for being such a fine caretaker of her home, a prominent home on Main Street. So with that said, moving on to the agenda, we are here to review and discuss the bylaws of the Historic District Commission, the town ordinance concerning the Historic District Commission, and some of the correspondence that's going on here. I'd like to first, and I'm going to give everybody a chance if they want to say that, you know, contest something I'm going to say, or want to add something, that's fine. But I would like to lay out sort of why we're here today, I believe, or at least why I called the meeting partly, and what's transpired. As you recall, at the last meeting, a regular scheduled meeting of the year, as required by our bylaws, the election of officers was on the agenda. I admit I hadn't really thought about it, but it was. So we did have an election. The issue came up regarding who is entitled to participate in that election. And the bylaws were read, and I can't argue, I'm not arguing that they weren't read exactly as they're written. And the bylaws do state that the 5 regular members of the commission shall elect officers. Following, well, then not to, I don't think we need to revisit the details, but basically what resulted was for secretary, we had Jim Calciano, and for vice chair, we had Jay O'Leary. And then on what ultimately was a 4-to-1 vote, we had Evan Honeyman elected. So now after the meeting, or at the meeting, you know, it just occurred to me like, gee, first of all, I don't recall, it seemed to me everybody always voted. You know, I did see the language that was shown, and I wasn't going to, I wouldn't have the ability on the fly to do any more than that. You know, after the meeting, I did get a few inquiries asking me if that is the way it should be. And I thought about it some more, and because I had a nagging in the back of my head, I did take a look more closely. Again, the bylaws seem pretty clear. I'm not arguing that. But then I looked at the town ordinance, and the town ordinance to me appears to be pretty clear that it says the commission shall vote. And so with that knowledge, I sent a letter, which I think you all have for today, or was provided to you by Shannon, to the town clerk, chair of the council, and Kathy Egan, and all of you, except for, again, apologies, Evan, who accidentally dropped off, with my view, which was it appeared that we had violated the town ordinance. So with that, I asked the town to look into it, which they did. And one of the things they did is ask Bob Crescenzo to take a look at it and give his thoughts on the issue, which he has done. And you have his letter or opinion addressed to Kathy Blonsky regarding, well, regarding certain issues, I will say. And I think, you know, with that, first let me say, is there, before I ask Bob to sort of review his analysis of the issue, as well as whatever else he thinks is important, perhaps the conflict or what happens if there's a conflict with the ordinance. Is there anybody on the commission that wants to say or add anything before that? Because I sort of set the table, and again, I want to be fair. If somebody else thinks there's some other element here, I'm more than happy to have you state what that is.
Sure. Commissioner Chairman, I'd like to say something.
Yeah, please.
Okay, thank you. So good morning and happy New Year's Eve, everybody. And although I don't believe she's on the call with us today, I'd like to echo the chairman and thank Holly Holden for her 20 years of service and dedication to the town of Farmington and to the historic district. I'd also like to thank all of the commissioners, the town staff, the town attorney, and members of the town council for their time and effort spent investigating this inquiry, especially during the holiday season of what has already been a year of extraordinary stress and uncertainty. For those of you who haven't had an opportunity to meet me personally yet, I wanted to share with you that my roots here in Farmington and Unionville run very deep. I have 3 generations of family members buried in the Riverside Cemetery. My great-great-great-grandparents lived on Meadow Road, and I'm told that they donated some of the fieldstone that was used to build St. Patrick's Church. One set of my great-great-grandparents lived in downtown Unionville at 63 Main Street, a home that was built in 1855. Another set of my great-great-grandparents lived on Garden Street, and they were featured in the book Farmington, Connecticut, The Village of Beautiful Homes. My great-great-grandfather was a caretaker at Miss Porter's school, starting in 1906, and he remained there for over 50 years. My great-great-aunt, Lillian Goodfield Anderson, was from Farmington. She passed away 3 days ago at the young age of 101 years old. My point here is that this is incredibly important to me. And had I had the opportunity to meet everybody in a non-COVID situation, I think that you would realize that this is a real passion of mine, and that Farmington has been in my family for many generations. So, you know, and so I'll pause there. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. And that's fascinating. I look forward to learning more about your family, Evan, because as you may know, I'm also totally obsessed with Farmington history, and said some things that have clicked already for me. So I'm curious to hear when we have time, and obviously another venue. Anybody else like to say something at this point?
This is Liz. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time to raise two issues, but for future and possibility of altering the way that we conduct ourselves. I personally would like, I think this was suggested in an email from someone, when we have elections for people who are running for offices, to talk a little bit about their background and provide some introduction to us. I think that would be helpful. Even if they've been on the commission for a long period of time, I think it, you know, we have had a wave of new members over the last couple of years, whether they're standing members or alternates. So I think that would be helpful. And also want to know what the procedures or processes are for altering the way that we operate to possibly allow alternates to participate in elections. So what would that take? What would that require for us to change things? So those are the two issues that I would like to raise. Thanks.
Yeah, if I can, first of all, I think both of those are fair points. I think as far as the second goes, you know, that would be something potentially to consider next year at regular meetings, whether we feel there are any appropriate changes to the bylaws. In fact, you know, that's probably something that I don't know when they were adopted, quite frankly. It's probably a worthwhile exercise, Liz, and I think that's a great idea to sort of, we can figure out how to do it. Now, you know, whoever's chair, I guess, can decide how they want to do it. But certainly the first, if I'm going to remember what it was, I certainly support, you know, people sort of stating some background. And you're right. You know, it's funny, at times boards seem to have the same people on them forever, and sort of things are done automatically. And that includes the way these elections used to go, mostly. But then there are new people, and it is only fair to, especially the new people, but everybody. I mean, we should all be accountable and willing to state who we are and why we're willing to serve and all that. So I would suggest, and again, I'm still going to ask if people want to say anything. What I'm planning to do is let's hear Bob. I've got some more comments, and then we can see where we go from there. As far as, again, what the issue is today, we have it's a special meeting. It is solely focused on reviewing this issue and then determining what, if anything, if there should be another election or what we can or can't do. So with that, is there anybody else that wants to say anything before I turn it over to Bob?
Yes, Jay, if I may.
Yeah.
I concur with you, Liz. I've been on for a number of years. Once again, I'm the oldest person in the room, which should tell me something, I guess. You know, when I was first asked to join, you know, I had to produce a resume or a circumvite that was at the time only, I didn't realize it was party-wise to the Democratic nominating committee. I thought it was something the town council required and was in a file for anyone to see. You know, when I did appraisals, every appraisal went out with my resume. So I would definitely like to see something like that enabled, so it becomes part of the public record. So like when somebody new comes on, whether it be, you know, Evan, John, whomever, they could just go to the site and say, oh, this is who they are. This makes it a lot easier rather than taking a year or so to understand who this person is, what their backgrounds are, or asking everybody. So that's all I needed to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Anybody else want to say anything? Okay, then, Bob, again, if you don't mind, maybe just providing your analysis and then again, maybe touching on, the code and
Sure.
conflict. Thank you.
Sure. I was asked to review the proceedings that were undertaken by the commission at its December 15th meeting for election of officers, and specifically whether or not the exclusion of the alternate members from voting on the election of officers was correct. And as everyone knows, the bylaws are clear. I just pulled them up, and
You want them up on the screen, Bob?
yeah, that's probably the best way to do it. So the commission was requested advice on that from staff at the meeting, and staff advised that the bylaws were clear, that only the regular members are to vote for the election of officers. It's not as if the bylaws don't cover it or the bylaws are vague. The bylaws are very clear on that. So the question becomes, and you voted in accordance with your bylaws by allowing the regular members only to vote on the selection of officers. And then a question arose whether or not the ordinance, which is superior in force to the bylaws, says something different. So in preparation for my letter, I read the minutes of the meeting, I read the bylaws, I read the ordinance, I read Robert's Rules of Order, I read most importantly, the statute, and that authorizes historic districts. And I also read a number of cases on this issue, and there are, there's quite a few legal decisions from the Superior Court and the Appellate Court on the circumstances under which alternates may vote in commission matters. And keeping in mind that there are 4 local commissions that have alternates: Planning and Zoning, Zoning Board of Appeals, Inland Wetlands, and Historic District Commission. So after doing my research and reviewing what I just mentioned, I wrote the letter to the town manager confirming that staff had given correct advice to the commission, that the vote on the officers was limited to the regular members. And you all have my letter, you read it, and you see where I came from in terms of reaching the conclusion that supporting staff's decision. I did not in the letter discuss the ordinance. I actually had it in there, but I took it out to make the letter a little bit shorter for brevity's sake. I probably should have left it in. But anyway, I did look at the ordinance, and in particular, section 111-3 A, B, and C, which is really what is been questioned here, whether the ordinance says something different about the circumstances under which the alternates may vote. And in particular, the question was raised about whether the reference to in C, subsection C, this commission shall elect annually a chairman, a vice chairman, and a clerk from its own number. Each regular member shall continue in office, and you can read the rest. And the question was raised whether that reference to the commission was sufficient to override the bylaws and allow the alternates to vote on the election of officers. And I came to the conclusion that it was not, and for the following reason. In order to override the clear statement in the bylaws, the ordinance has to be in conflict with the bylaws, and under sort of standard rules of statutory construction, when you have 2 provisions in 2 different documents, you have to find a way, if possible, to read them both and give effect to both. And I think here the term commission cannot be read to imply that alternates, because they are members of the commission, are voting members for purposes of electing officers. And here's why. Every case that I read including the most recent case, the 2011 appellate court cases, which are referenced in my letter, states very, very clearly that alternates to commissions have the powers of a member of a commission when seated. And if they are not seated, and they can only be seated for one of two reasons. One is in the absence of a regular member, or two, if a regular member has some sort of conflict that precludes him or her from participating in a matter. Those are the only two reasons you can seat an alternate. No alternate was seated here because all 5 regular members were present. They were all able to vote. There was no conflict, etc. So there were no seated alternates. And therefore, the alternates, the cases say very clearly, the alternates not only can't vote, they can't participate in the deliberations unless they're seated, except when there's a public hearing item. The alternates have the same right to speak at the public hearing as the general public, but once the public hearing is closed, their participation, right to participation ends. And then, you know, in reviewing those cases, someone will say, well, they all deal with applications, and that's true. So the issue is whether or not there's something substantially different between a vote for officers and a vote on an application. And it's my opinion that there is no difference because both are agenda items requiring action of the commission. And if we look at, and secondly, Robert's Rules of Order, which has a section on election of officers, states very clearly that the election of officers is undertaken by a motion that must be raised and seconded. And the proceedings on motions are the same for election of officers, are the same for any other motion that's raised. Robert's Rules of Order also says that alternates may only vote when seated, essentially. But I want to bring your attention to a document you probably don't have in front of you, but it's General Statutes 7-147C, and you'll note in the ordinance that the ordinance was drafted and passed under authority of this statute, 7-147A, and through the rest of the sequence for historic district commissions. But 7-147C is entitled Historic District Commission. And what's important about it is it does talk about this issue. And it's in subsection D. And Shannon, if I could figure out how to send it to you, I will.
I can try to open it up while we're.
Yeah, let me just read the relevant part of it. It says, a historic district commission established under the provisions of this part shall consist of 5 regular and 3 alternate members who shall be electors of the municipality in which a district is situated, holding no salaried municipal office. The ordinance was written from this text of the statute, but I'm going to go down to the relevant part here. It says, the sentence says, such alternate members shall, comma, when seated as provided in this section, comma, have all powers and duties of the member of the commission. If a regular member of said commission is absent or has a conflict of interest, the chairman of the commission shall designate an alternate to so act, choosing alternates in rotation so that they can act equally number of times possible. For whatever reason, that section of the statute didn't make it into the ordinance, but this chapter of the general statute say towns may enact ordinances to create historic district commissions, and they shall be consistent with this statute. So the statute sort of tells us how alternates participate in historic district commission meetings and when and under what circumstances they can participate. And I looked at the other statutes for planning and zoning board of appeals, and you know the language is identical as to when alternates may vote on any matter that comes before the commission.
Can I have the section of that statute again?
Yeah, 7-147C.
7147C.
Okay,
Subsection D.
thank you.
So the town's authority to have a historic district commission derives from this chapter in the general statutes, which authorizes the ordinance that Farmington has passed. And it's just a consistent rule across all commissions that have alternates that the alternate member is empowered to participate and vote on actions of the commission, whether it be an application or election of officers, only when seated. And the circumstances to seat an alternate are familiar to you. You've done it many times, I'm sure. But a vote on an application and a vote on election of officers are equal in how to proceed. That comes from Robert's Rules of Order. It also comes from the words used in the ordinance and in the statute, where it says may vote on any action. In fact, the ordinance says that as well. For me, that is just what's called black letter law. I mean, I don't think there's any dispute that the participation of alternates is only allowed when they are so-called seated by the chairman. And I've spoken a lot. I should probably give you a chance to ask me questions. So in summary, the vote that you took at your December 15th meeting, the election of officers was properly noticed on the agenda. It was raised as a motion. The motion was made and seconded and was voted on by the 5 regular members in accordance with your bylaws. And I'll come back to that. In order to ignore your bylaws, you would have to find some superseding law that was superior in force to your bylaws, that would make that section of the bylaws not illegal, but void. And I just don't think you have that, because the other part of the statute here says that you shall adopt rules and regulations to enforce the statute. You've done that, and your rules and regulations are presumed valid until they are overturned. They are valid because they are consistent with the statute. And in my opinion, they're also consistent with the ordinance. And most importantly, they're consistent with court decisions, which have interpreted the role of alternates in land use agencies like the Historic District Commission. So I don't see any basis to tell you that you didn't do it correctly on December 15th. I think you did. And I think you did it in a way that was consistent with your bylaws. And I bet you if you went back and you looked at votes on officers the last few times, they were probably unanimous votes. And the alternates may have said aye when the motion was raised, but that's of no legal effect because there would be no material error in that because it was unanimous vote and the alternate votes didn't make a substantive difference in the outcome. So I would not at all be surprised to find that in past years, you and the other commissions, raised a slate of officers and someone said, I hereby move that we appoint the following. Someone seconded it and might even gone on a voice vote because it was unanimous. So I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't any tangible evidence of a different process in previous years. Anyway, like I said, I've spoken too long. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah. No, first of all, Bob, you didn't speak too long, and I really appreciate that. And I hope everybody on this call appreciates that I am the one that requested an opinion of the town attorney. And I also requested that he be on this call. And I feel it's important for everybody to hear what he has to say. Having said that, and I don't think Bob will disagree with me, it is his opinion. And so the question becomes, and it makes his case, his opinion is fairly strong. I would point out that just as in our ordinance has, well, let me back up for 1 second. Neither in and again, I'm not mad at Bob. I just need to, be blunt. Nobody had pointed out this statutory section to me before this meeting, so I'm seeing it for the first time. I was going on just the ordinance and the bylaws, and when you look at our ordinance, I think it's clear. It says the commission, and if you look at the definition of the commission, it says the 5 regular members and the 3 alternates. And I don't know if you want to pull that up or not, Shannon, but I think it's
Sure.
11A. So now hearing that, I guess, potentially that maybe perhaps that's a conflict with the statute, I was thinking maybe, but then as I look at the statute, if you go to 7147CD, the very last sentence says, the commission shall elect annually a chairman, a vice chairman, and a clerk from its own number. And then interestingly, and this is word for word, both the code and the statute, so what I'm saying applies to both. So it says the commission, which would imply everybody, shall elect annually a chair, vice chair, and clerk from its own number. It then says, the last sentence in the section, each member and alternate shall continue in office until his successor is duly appointed. Now, I'm scratching my head because I don't believe the ordinance says that. That's what the statute says. The ordinance says each member shall continue in office, each regular member. Now, having said that, the only reason I point that out is the ordinance says each regular. So my question would be, if they only meant for the regular and members to vote, why wouldn't it say the regular members shall elect annually a chairman, a vice chair, and a clerk from their own number? So all I'm saying, and I think many of you, know my background. I am an attorney. I've been practicing for 30 years. I would not claim to be as much of an expert as Bob, quite frankly. But on the other hand, been very involved, been chairman of wetlands commissions, been chairman of this commission. Very interested in issues of planning and zoning and town land use and all that. I've thought about these things a lot. My own professional work is basically contracts and drafting, etc. So, I agree with Bob that when it's clear, it's clear. My issue is I think it's pretty clear. It says the commission shall. So my opinion is that, in fact, all members, regular members and alternates should participate in this. And then if it is gray, you then say, well, what really would be best? And I suspect most everybody on this call, if I'm serving on a board or a commission, you should have an input into who is the officers, who's leading the commission. You're sitting here every day. You should have the right to say, I want somebody running the meetings that A, knows what they're doing, running an efficient meeting, B, has the right temperament, is respectful of commission members and differing opinions, is respectful of the public, can handle the public, is respectful of the applicants and can deal with the applicants and try to manage the difficult, occasional adversarial, if you will, times. So I think it's not only clear to me in the statute that all of the commission members should participate in the election of officers. I think it's a good idea as well. And then I guess if this is truly a gray area, so perhaps we have the right to determine whether or not what we think this means. I would just add that, if we don't permit everyone to vote, for some reason we've now, I can't think of the logic of saying only regular members first of all. So I don't even understand. But if we say that's correct, not only do you have 3 members ultimately having the power to decide who's going to be having all of the offices, in this particular case, the facts that we were faced with, we now have 2 people who have, because one of the persons, without stating a reason, and that's fine, is no longer on the commission. So we've effectively got 2 people that have decided who's going to be this. So, I strongly, as Bob makes his opinion, I strongly make mine. I will only add, I make that opinion. I have no financial interest or professional for that matter, political. I just think we should have a vote. I'm not, you can vote who you want. I'm just saying it makes sense to me to have everybody participate in that vote. So with that, I'm going to call names on the assumption everybody's going to have something to say. Obviously, you don't need to say something, but if I may, I will. So with that, just because who I'm seeing on the screen at the moment, Ted, do you have any questions or comments for Bob or me or anything?
No.
Thank you. Jim?
No.
Jay?
No.
Evan?
No.
Liz?
No.
Okay. Well, then at this point, what I'd like to do, and
Hey, Jay,
Bob.
it's John Renahan.
I'm sorry, John, you didn't show up. I did it again. 7. I counted 7. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Just a question for Bob. And again, his commentary was helpful. From a town of Farmington standpoint, is our town governed by the town charter and town ordinance, or I just maybe need some clarification on what takes and I understand the commentary, Bob, on the bylaws and interpreting the bylaws in accordance with the ordinance, but what governs our town?
Well, the charter, the ordinances, obviously, but also the general statutes. And I think it's not always the case that the statute prevails over an ordinance or a charter section, but in this case it does, because the Historic District Commission authorizing statute is clear that the ordinance and other rules, regulations shall be consistent with this ordinance. So this ordinance, this statute governs over the ordinances and over your rules and regulations. For instance, you could not have an 8-member commission, 8 regular member commission, because the statute says you shall have 5. It's very directory in its effect. And I just want to reiterate one point and be very clear about it. I don't think the reference to the commission as an entity implies that there is a different voting process for the election of officers versus on applications, because you will see that the reference to the commission is the same when it's talking about applications. It says the commission shall act and the commission shall vote. There are just 2 classes of members to this commission, as there are planning, zoning, inland wetlands, and zoning board of appeals. There are regular members and there are alternate members. And I just want to be very clear, as the attorney for the town has to look at this. The voting rights of the alternates are triggered when they are seated. And that voting means voting on applications, and it also means voting on any motion that's on the agenda. So with that, I'll stop talking.
Thank you, Bob. And I do appreciate your point of view and your opinion. Again, I will say again, it does say the commission both in the statute as well as the ordinance. And so what I would suggest here is, or I guess what I'll do here, and we have Bob here to help us to make sure that we're acting within our bylaws, et cetera.
Mr. Chairman, may I add one additional thing before we continue, please?
Sure.
A moment ago, you had mentioned that this decision would have been made by 3 individuals and then essentially 2. But I just want to state for the record that you actually had cast your vote for me and then withdrew your nomination. That's all.
That's fair, and that's true, which ironically is going to be interesting and the next thing I have to say. So my understanding is that to reconsider a motion previously passed, somebody who voted for the motion, the prevailing motion, needs to make a motion to reconsider it. And so seeing as I did in fact vote for the election of Evan Honeyman, I would now make a motion that the commission reconsider the election of officers by holding a new election for, I think I'm okay just doing the position of chair because the other motions were unanimous. But I would ask that make a motion to that effect. And before I ask for a second, I would also like to appoint John Renahan. He is an independent to sit as a regular member to act on this motion, assuming that we take it to a vote.
Mr. Chairman, I object to any alternate participating in this vote, as the alternate will not be replacing an absent commissioner. Given that Holly Holden resigned and is not absent, and there is not a conflict in her being here. There should be no revote, given that the election was legal as set forth in the town attorney's letter dated December 29, 2020.
Repeat your point again.
I'm objecting to any alternate participating in this vote, given that Holly Holden resigned and is not absent, and there is not a conflict in her schedule for her not being here. So there should be no alternate participating in this vote.
Assuming I have discretion to decide that issue, I will find that she is, we do have an absent regular member, whether it's because of vacancy or person not being here. Therefore, I will ask for a second.
I'll second.
Is there further discussion on the motion?
I'd like to ask the town attorney for his opinion on that, please.
Bob?
Well, I've heard that a member resigned. I don't know what action she took to make that effective. I don't know if it's an absence or whether it's a vacancy, because I don't know whether she has submitted the required letter to the town clerk, et cetera.
Hi, Bob, I can add clarification to that. So Ms. Holden submitted, her letter was dated December 18th, 2020. I do have it. I can bring it up on the screen if we need to. I've got to dig through emails, but I've got it. Her letter is dated December 18th. It was received, stamped in the clerk's office. I'm going from memory, December 23rd. And her position on our boards and commissions guidebook is noted as vacant. Her letter stated that her resignation was effective immediately. So regardless of whether you take the December 18th date or the date that it was stamped in at the clerk's office on December 23rd, her letter did state that it was effective immediately.
Bob, before you answer, I guess we could now have another legal argument over what absent means. All I'll say is, and maybe I'm going to be wrong here, when there are vacancies, we appoint an alternate to sit in their place to make decisions. So if we're now going to make a cut hair here on that one, I guess we can, but I strongly believe that if we have an absent member, whether it's for vacancy or whatever, clearly you can appoint an alternate to stand in their place to act on the matter. So Bob, if you want to add anything, that's fine.
The only thing I can add is I've not looked at that in particular. And that's all I can say. I have not researched that issue.
Fair enough.
I understand the arguments. I have not.
Yep, I do too.
Want to offer a off-the-cuff opinion on that.
Evan, did you have something else you want to say?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask, specifically which procedure allows for the reconsideration, and then I'd also like to know who raised this procedure in the context of this scenario.
I just raised it.
Who raised it to you? I'm sorry for clarification.
Myself.
Okay.
This is my own idea. I don't know. I mean,
so the idea was not presented to you by anybody else?
I don't know who raised it. Bob, I don't mean to put you on the spot. You and I briefly had a chat yesterday morning where you and I wanted to talk to you about the town code. I don't recall if we discussed that or not. So Evan, it's possible Bob and I talked about it. I will look, if we're going to go here, I will say unequivocally, I have not discussed procedure with anybody. I will say, and he responded to an email. I have spoken with Bruce Charette, who I don't believe is necessarily involved in any of that. But if you're interested, I'm happy to share transparently what I've spoken to about anything on this. But at any rate, no, Bruce did not, nor did anybody else raise to me this idea. So I hope that helps. And I'm sincere.
Okay, and where was this procedure found? Can you please just cite for the record where it was found?
I just think it's a rule of order. Evan, I'm happy to go here, but I just would say, if we're going to go here, part of our discussion could include what occurred and ask people, what discussions were had about the prior election beforehand. And
I'm sorry,
I don't want to go there.
That issue is not on the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, it is. It's discussion of the December 15 meeting, election of officers.
But per the bylaws, members shall not remark on or question the motives of other members.
Which I believe, okay, fair enough. Okay, so I've given you the answer. Let's go through. Jim Calciano, do you have any other comments or questions?
No, I do not.
Let's see. Jay, do you have anything?
I do not.
Liz, you're on mute if you do.
No, I don't. Thank you.
John, you're on mute if you do.
Nope.
Ted Sanford?
No.
Okay. So there is a motion on the floor and there is a second. John Renahan has been appointed as a regular member. Now, having said that, well, I'm going to ask for everybody to vote, and I guess we can then see what happens as far as seated regular members versus everybody else. So maybe what makes sense, Shannon, why don't you call the roll on the vote on the motion?
Okay, and to be clear, the motion is to reconsider the vote from December 15th for the election of chair.
Yeah, it's to hold it, I guess.
A new election. It's
a new
to allow
election.
for the new election.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that it's crystal clear. So yes, we will do a roll call vote. And I'm going in order, folks, of how I have this written down. So Jay Bombara.
Aye, yes.
Jim Calciano.
Yes.
Jay O'Leary.
No.
Evan Honeyman.
No.
John Renahan.
Sorry, point of order. Don't you guys have to motion to seat me first? Or is that?
No, he can.
It's my discretion as chair.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, am I also asking the other alternates that were not?
I would like to, yes.
Okay. Liz Gemsky
Yes.
and Ted Sanford.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion carries, passes. So with that, we'll move to item number 2 on the agenda, which is the election of officers.
Hey, Jay, point of inquiry from John.
Yep. Yes, John.
I guess it sounded like before your motion for a re-election of the chair. I guess my point of inquiry is I'd like to hear. I don't know if we need to nominate candidates first, but I'd definitely like to hear from the candidates.
Yes, no, that's exactly. So what I need to do is, and I guess more than happy to have Shannon if you want to do it again, or Bob, or whatever you makes sense. But I guess on the assumption that I may be nominated, I would like to turn over the running of the election. But I would ask that whoever runs it, and again, probably Shannon, that we, as has been requested, ask any nominees to provide a brief description of their qualifications and interest in the position. And then I would also invite, you know, and then again, people don't need to say anything, but also permit all members both to participate in the vote, but also to ask questions or make statements if they so choose prior to the actual election.
Hey, one more point of inquiry, Jay, is just and this may be a question for Bob, but when I read the bylaws and the town ordinance, it talks about commissioners.
John, you're cutting out. We can't hear you.
Using themselves when they're involved in this. Is there any precedent for commission?
I don't know if anybody else could. I couldn't hear that, so I don't know if anybody else could.
Is there any, like, when I look at the bylaws, it talks about involved. Is that relevant? Me now.
Where are can you give a section?
I guess my question is for Bob and I'm trying to pull up the bylaws now myself. If there's ever a precedent for the people that are getting elected recusing themselves from the vote.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you.
And thank you, John. One other point of order. I should, I guess, I need to appoint somebody to serve as a, we can get into this argument again, but I guess I will, for the purpose of the vote, as a regular member, although again, I'm going to ask that all of the members be polled, and it's my position that they all have the right to vote on this matter. But I'm going to ask that Ted Sanford be appointed. And by the way, everyone, Evan included, not spoken to Ted about where he is on any of this. So I would ask Ted to be seated as a regular member for purposes of this vote, whatever that means.
So I don't know, you appointed John Renahan for the previous vote, so John is
Right.
not.
Well, don't I need to alternate? I mean, I'm happy to have John do it. He's unaffiliated, but I was under the impression that I need to alternate on matters. Now, if that's not the case, or this is considered the same matter, maybe we can ask Bob. I don't know.
I think it's you appoint alternates for the meeting.
For the meeting.
Oh, it is the meeting. All right. I'm sorry, John and Ted. Okay, so John, for purposes of this vote, you'll also be a regular member. I see, now I learned something. Thank you. Read the bylaws.
Okay.
Okay, so, well, I've asked Shannon to run the vote, or so she'll need to take the nominations and then all of that, or again, Bob is fine too, but I'm fine with Shannon.
But now you're asking me to run the election, and you want me to allow all members, including the alternates, to vote in this election?
Yes. I can't hear.
I will do what you ask as current chair of this commission. I do want it noted for the record that I am opposed to going against the advice of the town of Farmington's town council. So Bob DeCrescenzo said the alternates do not vote. I don't feel that we should go against that. You are a chair of this commission, so we'll figure this out when we roll through the votes.
I appreciate that.
What
Take a
point of order?
nomination. Excuse me?
Point of order. Isn't John Renahan now a voting seated member?
He
Yes.
is, but Ted Sanford and Liz Gemsky are not. They are still alternates.
Right. Okay.
And what Jay is asking is that they be allowed to vote as part of this election, which
Well,
is
at the very least be polled, yes, yeah.
and not consistent with what Attorney DeCrescenzo has put forth.
Yep,
So now Okay, we'll take a motion for chair, please.
I'll make the motion to nominate Evan Honeyman for chair.
Okay, is there a second?
I will second.
Okay, are there any other motions for chair?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we nominate Jay Bombera to continue as chair.
Is there a second?
I guess I'll second.
Are there any other nominations for chair for the Farmington District? Okay, hearing none. Evan, you were nominated first. Would you like to speak on your own behalf regarding this nomination? And then Jay, I will ask you to do the same.
Thank you, Shannon, but I have nothing additional to add at this time.
Thank you. Jay.
Okay, thank you. I do want to first say I'm excited that with the members we have on this commission, including the newer members, certainly think that we need new people and blood. I do think that, and quite frankly, this is the first time there's really been an issue with election of officers since I've been an officer. The only, my only concern is I think that, you know, this is a critical commission. It serves a critical purpose. I think having someone as chair with some experience, and again, it's not, I don't want to make this sound like it's personal, but I do think that more than 3 meetings is critical to have someone who's had the experience, who other members have seen in action. If somebody has a particular issue with the way that I handle meetings or people or whatever, I'm always open to criticism, believe me. I'm my own worst critic. So I'm more than happy to hear it. I think that we've run this commission very well in the past 4 years. I certainly can confidently say we've not done anything to put the town at jeopardy. I think we've made 98% of the people that come before us at least satisfied, if not happy. I do have, as you all know, a passionate interest in Farmington and its history. Like Evan, I've got family that goes very far back, and I'm very interested in the history. And I have been involved in many issues in town. Having said that, I would be happy once there are people with experience that would wish to be chairman. I would not object to letting someone else take the leadership. I am a strong advocate of change in leadership over time. And one of the things that this experience, which has not been pleasant for me, has taught me, or has opened my eyes to, is yes, somebody already said it, we need to look at our bylaws. There are things, quite frankly, we are not doing, which we should be doing. There are things which the bylaws say which are not correct or in conflict. So if you choose to have me serve another year, I think that would be one of the things that I would focus on. In addition, I would do what I did the last 2 years with the help of the town, continue to try to seek properties that should be in the district and try to seek the owner's approval to have them put in the district. And then, you know, there's sort of a third thing here, and whoever's chair, I hope, would see it the same way, that, you know, there is some specific language in our ordinances and our bylaws that allow the chair to sort of advocate, if you will, for historic district and properties. But there are other issues in town where properties are not a historic district or properties that should be preserved, that are not necessarily going to be put into the district for different reasons. But there is a way that you can advocate for that. And that is something I have done and continue to do, including trying to find a way to reconstruct the, I'm going to forget which Elijah, but the Elijah Lewis house, which Farmington Historical Society now holds in crates, get that rebuilt in a prominent place. So, you know, again, I have not enjoyed this at all. I assure you, and it has not been a political thing for me. It has been simply what I believe is best for this commission and the town, which I think is how all decisions should be made with respect to our commission. It should not be about politics. It should not be about anybody's particular interest in advancing their own financial or professional interest. I don't believe that's the case, by the way, nor even in this matter. I'm just saying, I think we have a non-political commission, and I would like to keep it that way. And again, I am completely open to newer talent coming in, which I see coming in, and helping carry this commission further in the future. And with that, I've probably spoken too long. Thank you.
Hey, Jay, point of inquiry.
Yes.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it's John. I'd just like to hear from both candidates on where you live in Farmington, your relevant experience for wanting to have this role.
Okay, I think that's a reasonable request.
All right, and in fairness to Evan, let me go. Can I go first? Because I don't want to make him always have to go first.
That's
So can you just repeat that again? Because I said a lot. I don't want to keep repeating myself. I want to answer exactly what you said, John.
Yeah, I'd like to hear relevant experience in where you live in Farmington, and your intentions on where you may live in the future, if that would change at all.
All right. Well, I'm going to start, John, challenging you a little bit. I don't know. No one knows where they're going to live in the future. I'm happy to share, but I don't know that's necessary or appropriate. But I have no present intention of moving. But at any rate, I do own a home in the historic district on Mountain Road, just up from Miss Porter's school. So that's where I live, and I am a proud owner of a home in the district, and thank all those that are as well. It's a commitment, but one that, as we all know, is well worth it. What was the second part?
Relevant experience.
Oh, well, I mean, you guys have known, I can't recall exactly when I came on the commission. I want to say it was, about 10 years. I think I've been chair. I think I look back quickly, about 4 years. So I think that's pretty direct experience. I am an attorney, as I've said before. I do not do land use issues. I am a corporate attorney. I work for a firm here in Farmington. We're a finance company. I am also general counsel to a public company that is one of our investment funds. So I've got a lot of compliance, regulatory, corporate, and financial closing experience. I'm also on the board of the New Britain Museum of American Art. I'm on the board of the Farmington Historical Society. I also participate in finance committee meetings for the FEGLA. So I'm overbooked. One reason I'd be happy to give this role over in the future. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, John, for your question. For the sake of the folks, respecting the folks' time who are on the call today on the eve of a holiday, I'm going to decline to answer the question and ask that we move forward. Please.
Okay. Okay. We will move ahead with a vote. We will poll for the vote. I will start with Evan. I will go through everyone and ask if you're in favor and opposed to Evan's nomination. I will then go through Jay and ask the same. So, okay. And I'm going to go in the order that I have been going in for consistency's sake. So, Jay, are you in favor and opposition of Evan's nomination?
We can't just vote for who we want to vote for. Okay, no, you're chair. No, you're chair. I shouldn't have said that. I guess I hate the word opposed sounds too strong, but I guess I'm opposed because I'm going to vote for myself.
Fine. Jim Calciano, with respect to Evan's nomination.
No.
Jay O'Leary, with respect to Evan's nomination.
Yes.
Evan, with respect to Evan's nomination.
Yes.
John Renahan, with respect to Evan's nomination.
Point of inquiry, when are we going to be allowed to comment, Jay?
Oh. Well, I've got to go back to Shannon. I had suggested we do that, but it's up to her.
Yeah, we did the two nominations and I had the two applicants discuss. I hadn't thought to do an open discussion with all of the members. We can go back and do that and then start the vote over. So if you, we can certainly do that. So we will go ahead and do so. So we will strike the vote. And open for discussion, I will run through everyone if you have any comments regarding the nominations. So again, running in order, Jay Bombara.
I've said too much.
Okay, Jim Calciano.
Yes, thank you. Very interesting, most interesting board meeting I've been in a long time. I will say I am happy that there are new people interested in coming on board. And in this case, I wish that that Evan had more time, more experience. It sounds like he's going to be great on the board. It seems a little unfair to him to thrust him in that position when we've had both John Renahan and Ted Sanford on the board in waiting, both pretty much experienced in many facets, Ted in the building industry and both in the district. And Jay, he did say a lot, but he has a lot to say and has done a good job. I'm sure this is very difficult for him as it is for all of us. But I feel Jay's the right guy. Thank you.
Jay O'Leary.
No comment.
Evan Honeyman.
No additional comment.
Liz Gumsky.
No comment.
John Renahan.
Yeah, I guess I'd just like to say that, one is I appreciate the level of volunteerism and commitment of everyone on this commission and all the ways people serve in Farmington. I'm disheartened, specifically about this committee kind of being about politics and not being about the most important part of being stewards of the community. And so, I will be casting my vote for the chairperson that I think is most qualified to do the job at this time. So no disrespect to anyone I don't vote for, but I do think we should revisit our bylaws in 2021 and do a just revisit some of the things that we're all stewards of this town. And again, I think Jay has been doing a good job. And I think the commission and committee in general has done a great job. And I appreciate the openness and candor when we're reviewing applications. And I think that, that same level of openness and transparency should exist in all of our elections.
Okay. Ted Sanford.
My only comment is, well, I agree with John that it's too bad that this has become political, or at least it appears to. And I'm sure Evan would be a qualified candidate, but unfortunately, the first time I had the opportunity of even knowing of his existence was the last meeting when we had the election. I missed one meeting when he must have been introduced. And after being on this board, I believe for 4 years as an alternate, Jay is a known. He has always conducted himself very well. He handles issues very well. He's fair. So based just on the knowledge of the two people, I could only support Jay. That's my only comment.
Okay. We have nominations. We've heard from those that have been nominated. We've had discussion. We are going to vote, and I am going to change how I had initially set it up. So I will roll call through everyone and then simply indicate if you are voting in favor of Jay Bombara or if you are voting in favor of Evan Honeyman, so that we can get through this once. Obviously, everyone only gets one vote. So you're either in favor of Jay or in favor of Evan. I will go through in the same order that I have been going through. Jay Bombara.
Jay.
Excuse me?
Jay.
Jay, okay. I just want to. Jim Calciano.
Yes,
No, who are you voting for?
for Jay. Sorry.
That's okay. Jay O'Leary.
Evan.
Evan Honeyman.
Evan Honeyman.
John Renahan.
Jay Bombara.
Liz Gemsky.
Jay Bombara.
And Ted Sanford.
Jay Bombara.
Okay. Well, with or without the alternates, Jay Bombara would be the selected candidate with 3-2 without the alternates and 5-2 with the alternates. So that's our
Thank you,
revised
Shannon.
selection.
Thank you, Shannon. That really is it. And yes, the eye on the time, it is 11:15 all. Just one quick thing, and this is for the benefit of not only us on the commission, but anybody who might be listening. There is, as we now know, a vacancy. What I would urge commission members, as well as anybody on the phone or listening, to do is to think of who might be good members of this commission and to suggest those names to the town council. I am aware that the town council does significantly rely on the town parties or the political parties to provide names, but on the other hand, it is ultimately the town council that appoints people, and I would like the town council to have names and to consider them, just to make sure, I should say I've heard in this process a lot of comment that it's very difficult to find people. And I don't doubt that, but I just want to make sure we're casting a wide enough net. So the more people who are thinking about this might know somebody, I would urge you to suggest them. Quite frankly, the way that this typically works, it probably would need to be somebody that the Republican town committee would support. So you may want to think about that. But on the other hand, even if not, submit the name to the town council. It's their responsibility to consider nominations. So with that, I will first know anyone with anything else before we go. Okay, everybody wants to go. Good. Again, one last time, this has not been pleasant. I do hope that everybody on this commission remains committed to the commission and the district. And I do look forward to hopefully getting beyond this and to having a good year and seeing where we go from there. So thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year.